welcome to week 12 of the Coaches Show. I'm Adam Howe, your host, alongside Coach Ryan Boyer of the Warsaw Wildcats. Coach, welcome again.
Hey, thank you.
A little bit more modest edition or episode this week, following the Wildcats' 42-28 loss at Higginsville up in Lafayette County last week. They end their season at 9-2 in the district semifinals, but a game that you and your staff were proud of, I'm sure.
Very much so. You know, you always hate to see these things come to an end, but just a hard-fought game. Couldn't be more proud of our kids, and appreciate all the support we got. That was a great crowd, and it was, like I said, it was a battle we knew it was going to be, and unfortunately, we just came out on the short end of it.
You're right, and that battle being everything that we anticipated on the show last week when we talked about it being the most physical competition that we were going to be in, and then just really a bigger school, bigger guys, fast guys, a lot more athletes, a lot more guys standing on the sideline.
Yeah.
So, but then you also mentioned the crowd, and we will give them a shout out. We looked across from, of course, the press box side, and then our visitors are on the opposite side of the field there, and we looked over, and a huge crowd for the Wildcats there on the sideline, in the stands, and just you could feel the excitement of playoff football again in Warsaw.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, it was one. Like I said, I don't do a whole lot of turning around, but yeah, you just hearing them, and like I said, at the point when you do turn around and you can't really see the sideline, it's
right.
Great to see.
Right. So we're going to recap that game here just real quick, and feel free to jump in and elaborate on some of these plays, and I have to go by Coach Dove's notes here.
Okay.
So if we miss something, feel free to jump in there. But this one didn't start off quite like we anticipated.
Right.
Of course, they got the kickoff and didn't take them one offensive play, but a kickoff return for a touchdown on that very opening kick. And they had a really good kicker, and I believe his name was Kaiser Gan Vega, that could – I mean, his extra points, his kicks all night or whatever.
Yeah,
anyway, that extra point went up and good, and they're on the board quick, 7-0. That was the first score. Wildcats, though, they come back after that next kickoff. They come back and had picked up several first downs on the ground, and then Coach Morrison actually dialing up a play over the top, and that's when Brady found Cam Sievers on a 43-yard touchdown pass. We missed the extra point there, but really quick, it's 7-6, and that was the first time that the Huskers have been hitting the mouth like that, I think, winning their last two games before us 71-0 each of those. So really, I'm sure that their crowd was going, okay, we might be in for a good one, right?
Yeah.
So then that scores 7-6. They do come back on their next drive with 3:19 in the first, and they score again on a 12-yard run by Nevels this time. And then it makes it 14-6 after the extra point. And then they picked up another score there at the end of the first quarter, just under a minute, on a 2-yard run by their big fullback, Austin Guard. And that made it 21-6. And what's the mood on the sideline at that point?
Yeah, right there. It was one where, again, I mean, so many times in that game, we just kept telling our kids, hey, play this game for 4 quarters, ton of time on the clock, and just stick to our game plan. We had kind of a costly penalty. I think it was that first series, and we bounced back from it, and then I think we had a drop ball maybe in that second series. And so with that, it was, again, and kickoff return, Achilles heel there, which we'll cover here in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to that one again.
But to that, again, we just kept telling our kids, so guys, just stick to our plan. Don't look at the scoreboard. Just keep doing what we're doing and trust in each other. And they did.
And at that point, there's a lot of football left.
Oh yeah,
there's still 3 quarters left. So that second quarter though was kind of an uneventful one.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot going on in it, actually for either offense.
Right.
So Wildcats defense doing a good job keeping them out also. But the Wildcats actually scored late. About 3:11 left in the game, and that was when James Kellner, the senior, we can talk about him a little bit, came out. This was his first game action since the jamboree when he broke a bone in his foot.
Yeah.
He finally finds his way back to the field, comes up and makes a big play there on the outside. Slavins picks it up and runs it in, and now we're back in the ball game at 21-14 after a 2-point conversion by Slavins. So we're back in it, 21-14, and we have to cover the next play. That was another kickoff by the Wildcats. Let's kick it away from Nevels this time, so we do. Yeah. Let's kick it deep, and Thomas, just put your boot in it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we kick it to Aaron Vasquez, and he returns a kick for a touchdown.
Yeah. That was one. It was just and And it's kind of a common theme on the night. You don't like for it to be, but just anytime we kind of get a little momentum going, we'd lose it for whatever reason. And so, yeah, it's right there, like you said, 28-14. And but again, can't compliment our kids enough. How they handled the adversity, and even with that going into halftime was, our kids were still very level-headed and knew what needed to be cleaned up and what needed to be fixed. And and like I said, we can talk Kellner a little bit later, but it was funny before the game. Talking to one of the assistant coaches, said, we can use some of that Kellner magic tonight. Said he's old people is typically good for one forced fumble, and sure enough, he came up big with it.
And came up with a big one at a big time there too. So, so Wildcats go into the locker room down 28-14 at half, and then they receive the opening second half kickoff, which really makes that kickoff return for a touchdown at the end of the first even more painful. But anyway, the Wildcats get the opening second half kick, and that's Slavins to Severs touchdown pass from 17 yards out. So we'd driven the ball down, and I think he's at the 17 or so, and kind of shifts to his left and finds Cam in the back corner of the end zone, makes a good throw. Cam makes a good play. Thomas hits the extra point, and we're back in it. It's 28-21, and we're probably, I'm sure that the Husker sideline that their fan base is probably thinking these guys just won't go away.
Yeah.
So you got to be happy with that one. So there, it's 28-21, and then that was it for the third. Mm-hmm. So that middle part of the game, those middle two quarters, not a whole lot going on there. Then Wildcats actually come back. They made a big defensive stand.
Yep.
A big defensive stand, and then turn the ball over again on the next play.
Yeah, and as again, have momentum 2021, and we're thinking, hey, here's a drive to tie this thing up and even the playing field. And unfortunately, get an interception there on first down, and it's kind of take the momentum away.
Right. So it's 28-21 at the end of the third, and then Wildcats. I can't remember what happened there going into the fourth quarter, but anyway. Higginsville had the ball. There's 11:55. I think they had. I think we had made a couple good plays there at the goal line.
Yeah, it's fourth and goal actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they've got fourth and goal, and that's when their big quarterback, a big tall kid, Brad Hayes, I believe is his name, a 3-yard touchdown run, and their extra points good, 35-21, but a pretty pivotal moment there on that play.
Yeah, that was one. Like I said, this big moment, and then we really felt like our kids were in position, and then unfortunately, Brady Slavins put himself. I mean, he was coming downhill, just a bang play, and and unfortunately hurt his knee on the play and wasn't able to come back into the game. And that's something. Brady's such a great leader for us and has been all year long. That it's very tough, and it's tough enough handling the adversity you see in a normal game, just with scoring and penalties and turnovers and things like that. But then when, like I said, your leader and kind of the heart and soul, goes down like that, it's something that you don't see all the time, and it just shows the respect that the kids have and the coaches have and just everybody has for Brady is the emotion that came out of everybody. Our kids were visibly upset about it. I know Brady was upset about it. I was upset about it.
I have to assume he's a little bit more upset than anybody when people tell him you're not going back in.
Right.
And for a senior to be told that in his last quarter of football in his high school career, I'm sure is pretty devastating.
Oh, without a doubt. And so that was tough. That's one of the harder, or maybe the hardest ones I know as a coach that I've had to be a part of.
Right. But we did see Brady after he got evaluated there on the sidelines and stuff. He threw a ball cap on, and he was on crutches, had ice on his knee, but he didn't sit on the sideline and pout the whole time.
No. No.
He jumped right over there, and I saw him next to you guys and Coach Morrison for the whole fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And he's over there trying to coach people up and talk to them and stuff. And then we saw some juniors and some of those younger guys but upperclassmen still jump up and take leadership roles on the offensive huddle and the defensive huddle. And Tayton was one of those. We see Nick Bagley. I saw him pointing some fingers and kind of getting into some guys saying, hey, we've still got a ball game to play.
Without a doubt. No, and that's a deal. And, we always tell the kids, hey, football, it's like life, and sometimes it's a smack in the mouth over and over again. And again, even when all that happens, guys, hey, we're down by 2 touchdowns, and you still got a whole other quarter ball left.
Right. And then 9:28 left in the fourth. The Huskers put another one on. That's a 18-yard touchdown run by Austin Guard, their big fullback. They stretched things out to 42-21. And then Tayton led the Wildcats on a scoring drive, ended in a 1-yard touchdown run by Gage Whitaker at 6:19 left on the game clock. Then that was the 42-28 final. I think the Wildcats had put together another drive, and then we went for it on fourth down, which you have to.
Yeah.
And then got stopped there, but and then they put their knee in the ground for that 42-28 final. So, we talked about the bad, the Brady going down, the kickoff returns and stuff, but a lot of good things to come out of this game, and especially from some of those guys that you'll see come back next year.
Yeah, is one. I mean, there's a ton of positives, and I know we recap the season. I know we're probably not there yet, but three kickoff returns, and maybe we're looking at a whole different season. And you never know. It's easy to set back, hindsight being 2020, but yeah, this is a game. This is a team that we have scheduled for the next 2 years for the third week of the season. So it was great for our kids to see that, and and again, anytime you're in playoff football, I mean, just see what you work for. And to our underclassmen, obviously we've had equipment check-in. It gives them something to hopefully motivate them for this off season. And again, not the way you wanted to end it, but hats off to Higginsville. That's a very quality team.
They are. And going over some stats here for that game, Wildcats below their average on yards per rush. As a team, they rushed 34 times for 99 yards, and Gage Whitaker had the touchdown. Team passing, Brady and Tayton combined were 12 for 23. That was 258 yards and 2 touchdowns for a team total of 357 yards, right around our average still.
Yeah.
So, Wildcats still doing what the Wildcats do, and that's put some yardage on the ground. Brady Slavins finished 8 for 11 with 2 passing touchdowns and then rushed 13 times for 58 yards. Gage Whitaker, 7 rushes for 34 yards and 1 touchdown. And Cam receivers had 3 for 13 yards. I'm going to come back to Cam. Nick Bagley had 6 rushes for 11 yards. And then I'm going to throw Thomas in. He was 2 for 3 with PATs. But let's talk about Cam Severs, 8 catches for 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. He fell 8 yards shy of the single game receiving yards record at Warsaw.
We knew, we talked to our kids, and they knew coming in, hey, we're going to have to throw the ball and do it effectively. And, I know that sometimes when you see numbers like that, you think, well, it's because you were down that you had to. But and later on it was. But like I said, early on, kids did a great job. Cameron did a good job. Brady with our play action, and then even when Tayton came in. And I don't know, it's one – you never get too wrapped up on records, but we looked at the board the other day because I thought,
sometimes I do.
I know. And I thought, man, that's a whole lot of yards for one guy.
It is.
And sure enough, he just short, but
he fell 8 yards short. That record held by Brad Jelinek at 197.
Yep.
I'm sure I was there. I can't tell you what game that was. Brad may be able to if he wants to let us know sometime. Grant Chapman actually came up with some big catches at big times too. Had 3 receptions for 55 yards, 1 down the right side. But probably the most impressive play that I saw was on a slant route.
Yeah.
Grant going up knowing he's going to get hit and then still picking up yards after a catch.
He did. The angle I was at, I saw the ball go, thinking, I don't know where that's going. And then this, pair of hands grab it and then, like you said, the yards after the catch, very impressive. Yeah, he had a good game.
Yeah. Wildcats for the season now, and now that's completed, we've got some final numbers. They scored 400 points on the dot.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll get to another one that's pretty comparable here. But 400 points on the dot. They averaged 36.4 points per game, 349 yards per game total. Rushed for 3,233 yards. So that's a 299 or 293.9 average per game. So pretty impressive there. And then 7.69 yards per rush. And they went over the 1,000-yard mark for passing at 1,173, an average of 106.6 yards per game. Their total yards per game at 399.6. So right there at 400, the same amount of points that they scored.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty interesting there. Wildcats offense, explosive all year, and the numbers don't lie there. So for the Wildcat defense, Brady Slavins had a heck of a game on the defensive side of the ball, too, and that's coming a long way from the guy that you probably didn't want to be on defense very much at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that was one. Like I said, we purposely held him out on defense as much as we could for the first half of the season, and then he came along, and and again, a lot of times, I think of Coach Barry when I say this, it's never good if your safety's having a ton of tackles, right. But these are tackles, and he did it against Buffalo too, where he's coming up and running the alley, filling gaps, and making these at the line of scrimmage or just past it.
Right. Brady finished with 14.5 tackles. I think that's a season high for a player.
He was close on the record.
Right.
The single game, I think, was 19. But a season
high for this year,
this
nonetheless.
Season,
right.
Yes.
So 14.5 tackles for Brady. He also had the fumble recovery for the touchdown. Gage Whitaker had 5.5 tackles. Riley Taylor, the sophomore, chipped in with 5. Grant Chapman had 4 tackles. He's a senior. James Kellner, another senior, had 3.5 tackles. He forced the fumble that Brady Slavins recovered for the touchdown. Garrett McGann had 3.5, and Cam Sievers had 3. Wildcats defense gave up under 200 points for the entire season. 11 games, 177 points total. That's a 16.1 point per game average, and gave up 231 yards per game. They finished at plus 14 on the turnover ratio. Always a good deal. I think we had 1 interception or something. I can't remember.
Yep.
But then we had the fumble recovery also. So
Cameron,
we were still even there. So that wraps up the Wildcats 2021 football season. They finished at 9-2 after the 42-28 defeat to Higginsville. We're going to look ahead, or we're going to talk about a couple of seniors, kind of look back, do a little bit of looking ahead, and we'll do that after this commercial.
J&D Pharmacy Home Medical Supply is a locally owned and operated pharmacy. Our pharmacists and pharmacy technicians will provide you with the personal service you deserve. We are a full-service home medical equipment company and accept Medicare, Medicaid, and most commercial insurance. Stop by our pharmacy drive-up window, where we have 2 convenient lanes located in the rear of the building. We look forward to serving you now and in the future with all of your health needs. J&D Pharmacy Home Medical Supply. People helping people.
And we're back on week 12 of the Coaches Show. I'm Adam Howe alongside Wildcats head coach Ryan Boyer. And Wildcats finished their season at 9-2 after a defeat to the Higginsville Huskers 42-28. We recapped that one there before the break. Talking about a few of the seniors here. We want to give some shout outs to these guys, make a few comments on them, if you will. Coach, you had a couple of foreign exchange students come in this year. One from Italy, one from the Netherlands. We kind of highlighted them in the Enterprise last week, and super great kids. And Giovanni Pagliani and Thomas Huiveld.
Yeah, very neat experience. I think in all my years of coaching, I think I've only had one other foreign exchange student. I've never had 2 at the same time. I know that, and just a neat addition. Those guys. Soccer background, Thomas with the rugby background, and just coming out and just working. And, the kids, they gravitated to them, took them under their wing, and, they've it's a very neat experience. And, obviously, Thomas with his kicking, that's something that, we talked about in the season.
Didn't expect.
You just didn't know. And so,
but I'm sure that somebody like Taten's glad that he showed up.
Without a doubt. And so, and it's neat, and I talked to him a little bit on just the impact he made. So now we have guys that want to work and work on kicking off and kicking deep and kicking extra points and field goals and things like that. And Gio, he actually came a couple days after Thomas out to practice, and again, it's such a great attitude. Just worked his tail off and always got in, never complained. For both those guys, to me, you couldn't ask for 2 better, foreign exchange kids to your program.
Yeah, and I saw it, and I witnessed these guys work.
Yeah.
And this was when I was out there coming out. We'd come out at the tail end of your all's practices for our youth practices and see Giovanni and Thomas out there kicking.
Yeah.
And you could just see them thinking, I don't really know how this works, but I think this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
But Nick Bagley being out there and Garrett Ferguson and those guys working with them on snaps and the placement and then their kicks. And then seeing Giovanni, I saw him back behind the field goal, just fielding balls for Thomas a lot.
Yeah.
So the way that they work together, and I believe they live in the same household, so they might as well work together. They have to live together, so it makes it a lot easier.
Exactly.
But certainly great kids there and good additions to the club this year. Brady Slavins, another senior. Everybody knows him. We've talked about him about every week, it seems like, but deservedly so. Brady, the senior quarterback, stepped up and played safety for us. Led the team in most offensive categories, I think, except receiving.
Had a couple.
Yeah, he did have a couple receptions. But Brady actually, and I put it in the article this week, Brady falls 104 yards shy of Jonathan Gott's single season rushing record. I believe it was 1852, and Brady ended up with 1748. Yeah. So that record had to have been held for 30 years. So he was close.
Yeah.
So, and I know his dad played with Jonathan, so I don't know which side Michael might have been on. Was
right.
he rooting for Jonathan, or rooting for Brady? I'd have to assume Brady, right? So, but Brady really, like you said, more interestingly or more deservedly, Brady, a real leader for the team.
Yeah, he was and is, and talking with him, and obviously we talk to these seniors all the time, and during senior week, I talked with Brady and said, it flies by, and I can remember putting you in as a freshman, getting a little bit of varsity playing time, and with that, and for him, I think it really clicked where I saw it, and because I'll say it over and over, he's one of the most competitive kids I've ever coached, that is true, hey, game's on the line, give me the ball, or just take over a game. And we saw it last year as a junior year, probably down at Buffalo is when first time really saw it all come together, really click for him. And just a kid that just absolutely loves the game and loves having the ball in his hands. And, you just watch how kids gravitate to him. And, and the thing, he puts in all the work and he does it right. It's not like he cheats the process at all. And so, yeah, definitely.
Right. And an emotional leader on the field.
Oh, without a doubt. Kids.
You can see the flexing and the stuff like that after plays, and in high school, kids feed off that.
Exactly. I was say kids, without a doubt, feed off him, and leader in the locker room, leader off the field. Just all the way across the board.
And speaking of leaders, Grant Chapman, another senior, stepped up. Maybe he doesn't have all the flashy numbers, but does the little things. From what I understand, a really good leader in practices and a good leader off the field and in the hallways out there at the school. But then we saw him this past week come up with some nice yards, 3 for 55, I think we had him down for. He had a big long touchdown pass against Midway earlier in the year. So Grant just doing what Grant needed to do, and that's a sign of a good, unselfish high school player.
Yeah, Grant, I always say he's a guy that I could always say, hey, here's a scouting report, here's what we're seeing, and I could count on him in a game to make sure that we were making the checks, that guys were getting lined up the way they needed to. He would always echo that, and I didn't have to repeat to him. He had a very high football IQ. He's a smart kid as is, but very high football IQ and very unselfish. It seemed like every week I'd be saying, hey, Grant, your corner this week, your safety this week. Hey, you're backing both of them up. Just doing different things like that. And again, we don't throw the ball a ton, but out there working his butt off, making the blocks, and then given the opportunity, made some big plays.
Right. Speaking of big plays, James Kellner came up with a big one here last week in the district semifinals, but James kind of dealt a tough deck this year. After breaking a bone in his foot there in the jamboree at home. He's on crutches and in a boot all year long until that very last game, and that was last week against Higginsville. And I remember some of these guys talking about how do we get James back on the field, and I think you told them how.
Yeah,
we've got to get into districts, and we've got to play an extra game in districts, and they did just that for James, and then James took advantage of it.
Yeah, and such a great attitude throughout. He could have very easily said, "Hey, that was a year," but worked his tail off, getting back healthy, and on the sideline every single week. But just being a coach on the sideline. He could easily stood back in the shadows and just watched or pouted or whatever, but
or he could have been in the bleachers.
Or just said, "Hey, it's too tough," but he didn't. And like I said, it's neat to see how it came full circle, and just so happy that he had the opportunity to do it, and that, like I said, his last memory was that, opposed to a jamboree, breaking your ankle.
Yeah, and couple other seniors here, or 4 of them, our last 4 actually, are all offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Cameron Taylor and Garrett McGann, they both bookended that offensive line, being seniors, and then Jackie Esser kind of got dealt a rough card, this year too, where he moved up there, took that starting center spot, and but then he dealt with an injury of his own. And then Gavin Cunningham, a guy that had wore number 7, I believe, for the first 3 years. He's a wide receiver, defensive back, and you guys kind of told him, "Hey, Gavin, you're going to be about our 5th or 6th wide receiver. You can be our first guard. What do you want to do?" And Gavin stepped up.
Yeah,
all 4 of these guys stepped up.
No, and you're exactly right. Cameron Taylor, up until about halfway through the year last year, was a running back his whole life, and said, "Hey, this is where we need you. Think you can be successful," and really just committed to it. Stepped up, did a great job, and then did a great job on the defensive side too. And just again, keeping those guys together, pushing them, and just being a good kid about it. Great teammate about it. And then, like you mentioned, Gavin Cunningham. He's a guy that's a DB and wide receiver, 170, 75 pounds, sopping wet.
Probably not many coaches had to do that this year.
right. And but stepped into that role, and did an excellent job with it, and just worked so hard at it. And just such an easygoing guy. He kept it light for sure. And like I told those 2 over and over, I said, you guys are what a Warsaw Wildcat is, and what people remember from years past in terms of, hey, what's best for the team? How can I step up and help the team out? And it may not be, I know their minds, I'm sure Cameron would rather be playing running back. Gavin would probably rather be playing receiver. But they did what was best and excelled at it. Garrett, he sat there, and he was our guy. He's a 3-year starter. So neat to see how he progressed. I visited with him, and like I said, during senior week, said, remember your freshman year when Jake Lubert was a senior, and said, hey, Jake's going to graduate. You need to be that next guy. And just see how, he fell in love with the weight room, and, the rest is kind of history. But he was one. The only snaps that he missed were the ones after we took him up when we were up, and never wanted to come out. And when games were tight, he said, hey, run behind me.
And a good stat that we came across this week was Garrett McGann gave up 3 sacks all year long.
Right.
3 in 11 games, so which is really impressive. And then another big stat that you brought up to me.
Yeah, I handed out pancakes like IHOP. He had 51 pancakes on the year, and it's hard to keep stats on linemen. There's not a lot of categories out there, but those are the 2 that a lot of people look at, and then you can look at how many yards your offense gets. But yeah, that's one. Garrett, when you watched him on film, he would come out firing, but it was at 3rd and 4th quarter when those other guys were starting to wear down that Garrett, he just had a motor and had a knack for it. And then Jackie Esser, like I said, unfortunately hurt his knee. He hurt it initially. Yeah, he hurt it. I think tweaked it midway, hurt at Sherwood, and then El Dorado was really bothering him, his ACL deal. But again, every week, braced it up. He knew what it was, and it's a senior year, didn't want to miss out on it. And kind of like we talked about with Peepaw, he could have bowed out and said that was it, but kept fighting, kept struggling. Actually practiced right up until the week of our game, and then again I think the old knee had enough. But all these guys, for our younger classmen, we always talk difference between being hurt, being injured. These guys all were banged up at some point, fought through some minor injuries, being hurt, didn't complain, just great leaders, showed up every day. And, and I know we have our 2 foreign exchange students, but every one of these guys are 4-year guys in the program. And so for them to have the success they had, you never know what it's going to look like for sure. But we knew exactly who they were. They knew what our program was about. And they did a great job of just leading by example.
And did a really good job of rebuilding that foundation for the program for years to come.
Yeah.
3 of them, I believe, have been on some college visits and stuff. We won't get into that too much. That's their business now. But 3 of them, I believe, in McGann, Taylor, and Brady Slavins have all visited some college campuses and stuff too to see if they've got what it takes to play at that next level also. So I'm excited for them and to see where that leads for each of those players. Looking back, Wildcats are 8-1 in the regular season. They won their first round district game over Knob Noster before going down going up to Lafayette County and falling to Higginsville in the district semifinals. Was this season everything you expected it to be, or were there any highlights for you as the coach?
Yeah, well, like I said, you never know for sure. And when we came into two-a-days, we knew there was just some question marks on that offensive line. And we're, hey, we got to figure this out. And, with that, I know we talked Gavin Cunningham, but Jace DePriest, being a freshman, running back, linebacker, popping in there, that was huge. And then you go into the Jamboree and still figuring some things out. To say it was a sloppy Jamboree is probably most accurate.
Most of them are.
Yeah, and we knew that, and that's what we tell the kids, guys. This is why we do these. But then to have, James Kellner go down, big senior leader, then there's another sign of adversity. But it was so neat. I mean, just to see the growth. We talked about it as a staff. I mean, we talked all the time, but we're just talking about it. Even after the game Friday night, and just how far these guys have come along, and how those underclassmen, just fill those little pieces that you just don't know. And that's what you got to love about the game, and got to love about the program, where these guys helped each other, bring each other along, and their commitment to film study, and just putting in the extra work, and the weight room, and everything. Yeah, I mean, just those, I don't know. There's not necessarily one highlight, but just to have the success we did and look back on it, I had to go back through and look at some stuff for getting ready for postseason honors, and you forget some things, and literally had to go through and watch about every play, and it was kind of neat. It just takes you right back to that moment, and I'm just so happy for these guys, so happy for these seniors to be able to have a year like this.
And if Tyler was really good, he would have come up with a highlight film from the season for us, and we begged him to do it, and he let us down there. So not our fault, it's Tyler's. We'll blame it on him.
Yep.
I guess the highlight for me would be that seeing kids learn how to win, and then believing in the program and its future and what it takes to get there, and being excited for that now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd have to say you probably feel it in the hallways, and you feel it in extra programs, and on the basketball floor this year, hopefully, on the wrestling mats, and then on baseball fields, softball fields. But learning how to win and bringing that back to the school.
Yeah.
And I've always said that I believe that your football season will set the tone for your entire school year.
No, you're exactly right.
So we hope that's what it does.
Yes, I agree.
But looking ahead now, and we'll talk about these guys a lot more, probably previewing next season.
Right.
You'll return Tayton Boyer. You'll return Gage Whitaker in the backfield. You'll return Nick Bagley in the backfield. Cameron Sievers. Again, this next year, I would anticipate some holes on the line to fill. Yeah. But then we saw several of the freshmen step up this year, get some big playing time. And you mentioned DePriest, and we saw Kendall Bagley there, and we've seen Drake Murrell there, and several freshmen come in and play some good minutes for us. But that's a good nucleus. How excited can you be?
No, we are. And Devin Bowl, he great move in for us and filled in right there. And like I said, you go through and it's, again, seeing how those guys, and that's why we try to sprinkle them in on special teams, and they do some things. We're very excited. It's always nice when you can bring back guys and you're not just cleaning it out completely. And so with that, these guys saw a lot of quality minutes, so stepping on a field Friday night shouldn't be too crazy and scary for them. And some of these guys are 3-year guys for us, and so we'll lean on them heavily. We'll let them enjoy their off-season sports, but we typically get together just right after the new year and just start those conversations and start building it from there. And I know they're excited and look to build off of what's already been accomplished, but also leave their mark.
I'm sure they're excited. The community's excited too, and now maybe these guys will realize the answer to a question that you got asked through the midseason, and that was like, why are all these people here?
Yeah.
Now they know why all these people are here.
Yep.
So Wildcats, for the football program, they have a big event coming up, and that is December 3rd, I believe.
Yep.
Tell us what's going on.
So Misha, they recognize every 20 years per class the 2 teams that play for the state championship. And last time Warsaw played in the state championship was 2001, and so they will recognize that 2001 team along with John Burroughs, the opponent we played against. And what they do is they recognize it before. So for us, it'd be before the 2A state championship. The championships are held in Columbia at MU, and so at 2:30, game starts at 3. So at 2:30, everybody and their families get to come out on the field, get that recognition, get free tickets to the game, and then hang out and do what you want from there. But very, very neat deal. I know we've had a lot of success trying to track down all those members. Put it on Facebook. I've been emailing, texting, calling, and
we did put it in the paper this week.
Yeah, it's in the paper. And
we're talking to everybody about it now.
Exactly. So if you're part of that group and you haven't heard of it, you can reach out to myself. Like I said, there's a lot of ways. You can just call up to the school and they can fill you in. But the cutoff's November 22nd is when I have to say.
That's when you have to tell them how many tickets you need.
Here's who's coming. Here's how many tickets we need, and to make it all work. And I'm trying to get as much information out there as possible. And so, but
an opportunity for this team to put their foot down on the field one more time.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And the good thing is nobody's going to hit you this time.
Yeah. I had a couple of them ask, "Hey, do we get a rematch or maybe for a play?
Maybe for flag football."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So.
But that one was a good ball game, and it's going to be fun to go back and see some of their guys.
Yeah.
And guys that you played against too, and a 36-32 final. I think in the newspaper this week, it's still touted as one of the most unforgettable games in Show Me Bowl history in Missouri. So came down to seconds ticking. One last play, and unfortunately just didn't go the Wildcats' way. But I was there. I remember where I was sitting, and I remember which way the Wildcats were going. So, really, it'd be a good event. And if you've not heard about it, reach out to the school, contact Ryan. It's something you won't want to miss. So, as we wrap up another season of Wildcats football, and an exciting one at that, from all of us here at BCE TV, we want to congratulate the coaching staff and the players for the Wildcats on a job well done. And we'd also like to congratulate those seniors that we talked about a little bit earlier. We'll look forward to following them through other sports this season. And Coach Boyer, again, thank you for joining us for the entire season today. We look forward to doing it again next year.
Yeah.
And for all of us here at BCE TV, I'm Adam Howe. And for one last time in the 21 football season, I'm going to the house.
This has been a BCE TV production. Thank you for watching.